Welcome in, everyone. I'm Limcube. I'm a Breath of the Wild speedrunner, and I'm going to 100% this game bit by bit every single day until the sequel comes out. Today, that is in 187 days. And while I do that, I talk about various topics from internet culture to video games. If you want to, you can have this on in the background, but I would be happy if you joined me. Today I want to talk about my journey of learning the Hollow Knight speedrun. It's just what's on my mind, so I kind of have to talk about it. And recently, I already made a video about why Hollow Knight is going to be my first speed game in the first place, what I think about it, and why I like it. And I've started learning it since. First of all, I'll have to give a huge shout out to the Hollow Knight speedrunning Discord. All of the people there have been super welcoming and super helpful when it comes to learning the game. But what I did today, basically right now, is actually 11 PM. Usually these videos go live a lot earlier. But what I did today is I just sat down all day and practiced. And I really liked it. This is something that I haven't done in a long time. Basically because I've always been speedrunning Breath of the Wild, I never really had to sit down again and just practice strategies, practice the speedrun. As soon as I had learned the main mechanics of Breath of the Wild, essentially, I could just use those main mechanics to learn any new run. Let's say I wanted to try out all dungeons, I can use the mechanics that I already know, like wind bombing and BLSS, and just basically apply them to the speedrunning route of a new run. But Hollow Knight is completely different. I just recently had beaten the game casually, and it's a tough run, I will say. It starts out relatively simple, mainly focused on movement, and I'm really enjoying it. I'm really enjoying the movements. In case you don't know, my very first speedrun, I don't think I've ever seen the Old Man sit here, but I rarely ever get, you know, the Great Plateau Tower. So I guess it's related to the time of day changing to this point already. But yeah, it's very movement based, which is very fun. In case you don't know, my first speed game ever was Super Mario Odyssey, a game that's essentially completely reliant on moving quickly. And I do really enjoy movement based. I hate movement based speed games. No, I'm kidding. But I do really enjoy movement based speed games. At the end of the day, they are... That's what it means to speedrun, right? Like, I know there's speedruns where essentially you just mesh text and you solve puzzles quickly. But at the end of the day, what makes going fast fun, in my opinion, is optimizing movement. Moving ideally quickly. And Hollow Knight delivers. There's so many movement optimizations you can learn for every single room, essentially, you go through in the run. There's this optimal movement that you can do. That's usually a combo of dashes, jumps, sometimes pogoing, which means basically hitting enemies or objects that are below you. And ideally, basically keeping momentum, and that has been really fun. But the speedrun that I'm learning in Hollow Knight is the any % speedrun. I think that's usually what most people start with, as it's literally just beating the game as fast as possible from beginning to credits. And that also means that you have to fight quite a few bosses. And basically I was learning the first half of the run. You kind of go through the early game sections, you get some abilities like the dash and the wall jump. And then you make your way into the City of Tears, the big city under the ground. And you fight the first major boss in the game, which is the Watcher Knight. And if you've ever seen Hollow Knight, or if you've even maybe learned the Hollow Knight speedrun, that's probably the hardest fight in the entire game. Because it's a fight that the game expects you to maybe reach like halfway into the game when you have some upgraded gear and maybe some extra health. It's similar to what we do in Breath of the Wild, but still different, because in the Breath of the Wild any % speedrun, we obviously fight the final boss pretty much right away, and the game also expects us to be a little bit stronger than we are. But at the same time, because we go through Hyrule Castle, we get a bunch of really strong equipment, which in Hollow Knight is too slow to get. So you basically fight that mid-game boss with super early game equipment. The first the first nail upgrade, the base nail, which is the weapon in Hollow Knight. You do only 5 damage per swing with that nail, and you do a little bit of extra damage with spells, but it's not a lot. So it's a very difficult fight. And I literally just watched another top any % runner play the game, and even they still struggled with the fight. It's very tricky and basically the first block in the road. But I'm very excited to sit down and practice the fight to eventually get good at it. From there, basically, I skipped it for now. I got better at the fight, but I'm not quite there yet. So I said, okay, let's continue learning. You basically make your way down through the city, get a little bit of money, and then I think that is really where the run starts getting kind of crazy. And I'm going to talk about this one specific skip coming up in a little bit that I really needed to rant about today. But basically, you make your way back up to the top of the game, kind of like the first city you arrive in, Dirtmouth. Also, why is my motion controls are really jank? You make your way back to the beginning village. You buy the Lumafly Lantern, which is an item that, as the name suggests, makes you able to see in the dark. And then you can enter Crystal Peaks. Or Crystal Peak, I don't know what the official name is. It's this crystal area. It's very pretty. And it has great music, but the movement is... This is basically where the movement really peaks, in my opinion. The movement is starting to get really crazy, really optimized jumps. Obviously, because now in the run you have acquired the dash, the wall jump, and basic abilities. And there's these crazy enemies that shoot crystal spikes and throw pickaxes. And it's getting kind of wild. I'm starting to struggle a little bit when it comes to movement, but again, still really fun. So far, so good. You go through Crystal Peak and you collect the Crystal Heart ability, which is the game's like super dash. A dash that basically allows you to go very long distances and go over huge, let's say, pits of acid or pits of spikes. And once you have that ability, you go back to Dirtmouth again, and then you make your way to the second Dreamer. When we fought the Watcher Knights, that was to reach the first Dreamer. There's 3 Dreamers in Hollow Knight. You have to get the 3 Dreamers to access the final boss of the game. And the second Dreamer, oh boy, this is now it's getting intense, is Monomon, the teacher. And she's in the Teacher's Archives, an area in the middle of, I think it's called the Fog Canyon. It's an area full of these like jellyfish creatures. Everything can hurt you. There's acid everywhere. You have to like dodge the acid precisely. And then to top it all off, the boss fight that you have to do before Monomon is Umu. It's this huge jellyfish creature, probably a play on Metroid, as a lot of people know. Hollow Knight is considered a Metroidvania game, a game inspired by the old Metroid games and Castlevania games. Do you have any food here? I have like no food on this file. If I want to 100% the game, I should probably at one point pick up some food. That sounds like a good idea. You make it to the archives and you fight the jellyfish Umu. It's a very, very annoying fight, especially with basic gear and only one spell. There's a really good spell for that fight, casually called the Abyss Shriek, which you don't get in any %. You only get the basic fireball spell, and it's rough, it's rough. And then to top it all off, honestly, after that fight is where it gets really, really hard. And this is what I just had to rant about today, because I just sat here for like the last 3 hours or so trying to get the skip down. But after Umu, you make your way towards Queen's Gardens, which is also a terribly hard part of the run. I think everything after this boss fight is really difficult. You go to Queen's Gardens, that's really hard, and you go to Deepness and to the Beast's Den, that's all really hard, and then you actually fight the final boss. But there's this one skip, and I think it's kind of notorious for people that have learned Hollow Knight, and it's called the Queen's Garden acid skip. There's this a pit of acid, I'll probably put it on the thumbnail, that you have to perfectly jump onto the ledge before the acid actually starts, cling onto the wall, and then super dash over to the other side. I think I probably died around 700 times today trying to get somewhat decent at that skip, and I'm not even close to consistent. It's incredibly difficult, but at the same time it really does make me excited to continue learning this game, because it sounds really hyped to eventually do a run and get all of these tricks first try. Again, the movement is super satisfying. I'm probably also not gonna stream again tomorrow, practice even more. My hope is that I can maybe start doing some runs on Monday, which will probably not reach the end. Next week is basically my goal to finish a speedrun of Hollow Knight. I'm very excited, but I had to just rant to you about this Queen's Gardens asset skip. It's a pain. Maybe some of you that are watching these videos or watching this specific video have learned this skip before and can share my pain. It's incredibly difficult, but I'm sure I'll get it done. Next week, I'm excited to be doing some runs. I just got the paraglider here on this file, so starting on tomorrow's session, I can go wherever I want. And yeah, I'm actually gonna be watching an esports match in a bit. Gonna get ready for that, maybe get some snacks. I do watch competitive League of Legends, and the World Championship has its final in just 2 hours from this recording. That might actually be my topic tomorrow. I kind of wanted to talk about the esports that I watch. I talked about how I would turn speedrunning into an esport before, which would be incredibly exciting to watch. But I don't know. Looks like I'm going to be playing Hollow Knight like 10 hours a day for the next days. I'm excited for it. Still going to be making progress here in the 100% playthrough. Thank you for watching today again, and I'll see you tomorrow.